Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Of course.
So you celebrated over the weekend because all of the 10 Dallas bond propositions, $1.25 billion bond passed, and you pitched this as a way for the city to compete with the suburbs. Why?
Well, I mean, the reality is we are in a competition with our suburbs. We can call it a friendly competition. We can call it whatever we want. But the reality is Dallas is the anchor of the North Texas region. It's the anchor of an 8 million person metropolitan area, the third largest, soon to be, in the United States and the fastest growing. But the reality is people have choice within that metro area where they want to live, where they want to locate a business, and we want people to choose Dallas. So we can't sort of just continue to go along and assume that folks will just choose Dallas, even if our infrastructure is not quite as nice as the surrounding suburbs, or even if the library facilities, the recreation centers, the aquatic centers, the swimming pools, all those things. The suburbs are newer, they're smaller, they got a later start, they were able to build things more recently, and so there's a lot of shiny gloss and a lot of new out in the suburbs that we frankly have to be realistic about. Folks will make those decisions based on what's best for their families, and so we want Dallas to have the best libraries in the area, the best park and recreation system in Texas, the best resources for people of a public nature, so they will choose Dallas over the suburbs. But we're also in a competition with the rest of the country and really the rest of the world. So people are choosing Texas, but we want them to choose North Texas, and within North Texas, we want them to choose the city of Dallas versus our suburbs.
And some of these are also the fact that the bonds passed as far as the new police training facility, as far as the deck parks are concerned. There are private dollars on the line for this, and now that they've passed, do you expect those private dollars to come?
We've already unlocked quite a bit of private philanthropy for a lot of our park projects. There are some park projects where there's more private dollars that we can pull down if we were able to pass a bond and get some public money put in. That's what some donors want, is to see if the city's asking them to, hey, contribute to the construction of a park. They want to know, well, does the city care enough about this park to put its own money into it? So the bond helps with things like that. But there's also just generally our park system is, I think, experiencing an unprecedented amount of growth, and the bond really reflects, I think, where the public sentiment is with respect to our park system. We've stated a goal of having the best park system in the state of Texas and having every resident, 100% of Dallas residents, live within a 10-minute walk of a first-class park or trail. And this bond, which has $345 million in it for parks alone, is going to help us get there. So I'm very excited about that. The voters are clearly excited about that. It's going to transform Dallas, and no matter what neighborhood you live in, soon you're going to see dirt turning in your community to create more green space so that Dallas is a city that's known for its parks.
What about the police training facility?
Police training facility was absolutely critical that we do that. We're putting $50 million of city money in with some state money that we got to build a first-class, state-of-the-art regional training facility. It won't just train Dallas police officers, it'll train peace officers from around the state, probably, maybe even around the country. But we're building this facility so that we can make sure that we address our hiring shortage in Dallas. We want to hire more officers, and we cannot recruit officers to the Dallas Police Department with the police academy that we have. It is, in all candor, Jack, terrible. And it's not befitting the men and women of our police department, the people that we're asking to come to our city to work here. So we're going to build them a facility that they deserve, and it's going to be able to offer them the kind of training they need on an ongoing basis to be the best trained police department in the United States. We've got a great police department. They're well trained, but we need to do even better. We need to make sure that we can say that there is no better training available in the United States when it comes to community policing and learning how to serve a community and protect it at the same time than Dallas, Texas. And that's what this facility is going to allow us to do. I can promise you that this will be something that generations of Dallasites for decades are going to enjoy the benefit of. A better trained, larger police force doing a better job of keeping violent crime down, which we're doing very well on, but we're going to do even better with this facility. And so I want to thank the voters of Dallas for voting to add the $50 million of city money to what the state is doing, and it's going to be incredible.
Dallas has been criticized as far as budget-wise, as far as putting on a bond, fixing Dallas streets, right? The potholes, etc. Do you think that the city needs to focus more on getting these streets back up to where they are, just out of the general fund budget, as opposed to putting it on a bond?
I think there's a little bit of a false narrative around this. The two aren't truly in competition with one another. We need to do both. This is a both and situation, not an either or situation. So let me explain that as quickly as I can. This is like when you are running your own household. It's not, are we going to finance all of our lifestyle in this family exclusively on current income, like what I make from working at CBS, or are we going to finance it all with credit cards? That's not how anybody's household runs. It's a combination of what I can afford annually based on my salary and my income, and what smart debt I can take on, what money I can borrow at favorable interest rates that allow me to do more things with my current income, because I've actually smoothed out my spending over a longer period of time on some of the larger ticket items. So the one that comes to mind in most households will be the mortgage. I mean, you could, if you wanted to, wait as long as it takes you to save the $400,000 in cash to buy your median home price in Dallas home. You could wait until you had $400 in cash sitting around, or you could have purchased that home with a 30-year mortgage, particularly when interest rates were in the 3% range just a couple of years ago. And that's smart debt to take on. That's what cities do. We take on smart debt at low interest rates to fund large ticket, big chunk items that we need to, and we do what we need to do annually with the tax revenue we get through the general fund. So, when you're talking about having $16 billion worth of unmet maintenance needs in the city, the idea that we're going to issue $521 or so million for streets and infrastructure in this bond sounds like a lot of money until you hear $16 billion. Then you realize, it's really just the tip of the iceberg.
Let me ask you about the city manager, T.C. Broadnax. He's first day on the job now in Austin. Is the city of Dallas, are taxpayers going to be on the hook and have to pay a year of his salary, from Dallas?
I hope not. I'll be very honest with you, Jack. I hope not. I hope we're not on the hook for that. But I can't say that unilaterally. The form of government we have here, I don't just get to say that's what's going to happen. I think that's a council decision, and I'm a member of the Dallas City Council. I would hope that we would make the decision that this departure doesn't qualify as a severance in the way that the provision of the contract was designed. I feel like this is a situation where someone found a position in another city that they wanted to take, and that's not what the spirit of this provision was about. This was about being involuntarily separated from your employment, i.e. being fired and being compensated for that. So I would hope not, but that's not a decision I get to make unilaterally. But the most important thing, Jack, and I wanted to just address that because you asked, but the most important thing is that the next city manager, we need to get that hire right. We need to get the right person in this position, and we need to make sure there's not a provision like that in their contract. I just don't want to pay I don't want to have any more debates about severance, and I don't want to pay any more folks for leaving the job. If we're going to borrow any concepts from corporate America, and I think we should, in terms of finding an executive for the city, how about the concepts of paying people for performance? If we're going to borrow a concept, how about paying a city manager a bonus or additional compensation for hitting some aggressive metrics we have for improving the efficiency of the permitting office, or further driving down violent crime, or further driving down the taxes in the city? Why would the one concept that we would borrow from corporate America be paying executives on their way out the door? It makes no sense to me.
So no more golden parachutes if you have anything to do.
If I have anything to do with it, we will not be paying golden parachutes to folks, and particularly under circumstances where it's clear that the person wasn't terminated. It's clear that the person wasn't being asked to leave. The situation that we're dealing with is pretty straightforward. Someone wanted to leave and take another position, and they did. And that's fine. This is America. You have the right to do that. But do you have the right to walk out the door with $500,000 of taxpayer money to do that? That's not what that, I wouldn't have included the provision at all in the last city manager contract. I wasn't on the council then. I wasn't the mayor then. The last mayor, my predecessor in that council, saw fit to put this provision in the contract. I wouldn't have done it. But if I had done it, I wouldn't say that this circumstance actually even meets that provision's criteria. It's not a termination. It wasn't a termination.
Let me ask you about the new city manager, because right now you have an interim, Kim Tolbert, and do you think that she has a good chance at it, or are you looking for somebody fresh from the outside?
I don't want to speculate on anybody's employment situation. Kim Tolbert is in the interim position now. That was, again, a council decision, and it's a council decision that I'm comfortable with. I'm fine with her being the interim. But I've also been very clear about this. I think the 9th largest city in America, which is what Dallas is, that is one of the largest cities left that still is run by a city manager form of government, what we call a council manager form of government, owes it to its residents, if we're going to be under this form of government, to take the hiring of the city manager seriously. So if it would be one thing if this was just some mid-level bureaucrat we were talking about, and we had a strong mayor form of government, and all the decisions were really being made by the mayor. That's not the city that we live in. We live in a city where you have a city manager that is given the authority to over 13,000 city employees, and is really the chief operating officer in some conception of the role of the chief executive officer of the city. We have to take that hire very seriously, and that means we need to really look nationally at, I'd say, public sector executives and private sector executives. We should have a broad view of this hire and think about who is best suited to lead Dallas, Texas, a city of 1.4-ish million people with a budget over $4 billion at this point. There aren't a whole lot of organizations out there, Jack, that have 1.5 million customers and 13,000 employees with an annual budget of $4 billion that are handling their hires any differently than what I'm describing. They're taking the CEO hire in those types of organizations pretty seriously. The searches are very robust, and they bring in a lot of candidates, and I think that's what we should do.
How would you describe the situation that the city is now facing with regards to its recently purchased building off I-35 that houses the permitting office? It was bought in 2022, and it had to be closed amid fire code violations and only temporary certificates of occupancy. How would you describe this situation?
Sounds like a mess. Sounds like a mess to me, right? It sounds like that's not something I'm happy about at all. I'm just listening to you say that. I mean, I think the residents of Dallas clearly deserve better than that. But you know what? This is not news coming from me saying that we've had issues with permitting in this city and issues with how the previous administrations, and I'm not talking about the administration in this case, I mean the city manager, not me, the city manager is directly in charge of those things and has been asked by me repeatedly to address those things. And I think what you just described suggests that they were not handled to the level and to the satisfaction of myself, which I think I speak on behalf of the whole city when I say that's not something that we are proud of, or we should be proud of. And so this next city manager, and this would be on my list of things that I wouldn't want to see, and I'm going to have a loud voice in this process. I'm not the only voice. I mean, the whole city council is going to weigh in on this next hire, but they need to understand that we can't be making the newspaper for asinine stuff like this. I mean, we have to do a better job on permitting. And saying a better job is me working on my language and trying to be more polite about this, but the reality is that that's an understatement to say we need to do a better job. We've got to dramatically improve the efficiency of our permitting, and we want to be able to say that we are as easy to do business with of a city as there is to do business with in America. And we can't say that right now. And we have to get there. And the city council needs to take that seriously. So, the permitting issue is a big one. It's not something that's new in terms of my saying so. I've been saying this for years now, that we need to get this under control. And the previous city manager obviously didn't quite get there. And hopefully the next one will.
I mean, I know the city manager is gone now, but does somebody's head need to roll because of this?
I don't know if somebody's head needs to roll or not. I mean, again, it's a tough balance, Jack, between wanting to address what's happened already in the past and acknowledging that things can be done better and being focused on solutions in the future. I'm trying to balance that right now. We're trying to get our arms around what's happened, but we can't be mired in it. We really need to move forward, and the most important hire coming up that's going to address this will be hiring a new city manager. And I will say this, to further answer that question, that new city manager, whoever he or she is, needs to make those personnel decisions with this type of situation in mind. And if they determine that heads need to roll, then they'll have my support for that. But they need to bring in the people that they need to get the job done.
I want to ask you two other questions,
Sure.
and I appreciate your time.
Of course, Jack.
Sports teams.
Yeah.
Dallas, you got the Dallas Wings to come from Arlington.
Yep.
How concerned are you about keeping the Mavs and the Stars in Dallas?
If by concerned you mean worried, I'm not worried at all. But as far as how high of a priority is it, it's a high priority. And so if by concern we mean, are you taking it seriously? Are you working on it? Is it something that is on your mind? Absolutely. I'm telling the residents of Dallas right now, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that every team that has the word Dallas, the name Dallas on their jerseys, if they're playing here right now, your mayor is going to do everything to keep them here. And if they're not playing here right now, so I'll let everybody fill in the blanks. If you got Dallas on your jersey and you're not playing here right now, this mayor is going to continue to try to explain to you and convince you why you ought to be. We can't make anybody do anything. It's private enterprise. Like I'm the number one champion of letting business be business and do their thing. But it is my job to make the best case possible for why Dallas is where you need to be doing business. And so I'm going to be continuing to talk to anyone who will listen about why this is the place you want to be. Not our suburbs, but the city of Dallas. This is where the action is. This is where the heart of the Metroplex is. And we'll make deals that make that attractive to folks if people are willing to come to the table and deal.
But didn't you make a play for the Kansas City Chiefs? I mean, but that's not really good.
I haven't made a play for anything.
Okay.
Here's what I have done, though. I've made it clear. I have articulated that the city of Dallas is not going to miss out on any opportunities for lack of preparation or for lack of effort in making the case to people that we can accommodate any professional sports league that you're talking about, both in terms of places to locate the team's headquarters and practice facilities where they can play the actual contests that they play, and for fan support and for financial return. I think what everybody ought to be understanding at this point is that sports is a business in addition to just sort of the cultural aspect of it, which is hugely important. We get a lot of psych value, a lot of emotional value out of the Dallas Cowboys' existence, but we don't get any monetary value out of it as a city when they don't have a practice facility in the city limits or a game played in the city limits. Frankly, they don't have a single asset in Dallas County. Forget the city of Dallas. They play the games in Tarrant County. They practice, and their headquarters are in Collin County. They got nothing in Dallas. As a mayor, I can't stand idly by and just watch all the professional sports action happen all around us and us not benefit from it at all financially. So I have to make the case to these teams why there's a win-win to be had there, why we can make a deal work for them financially, and it benefits us financially. That's what I'm in the business of doing. That's my job.
And my last question to you, just about Dallas crime, a topic that we've talked about before. I looked at the latest numbers as of Saturday, And so murders down from 96 to 72, that's down 25% from a year ago. Ag assaults down from 2374 to 1914, 19.38%. Robberies down from 755 to 743, down about 1.6%. What's your thought about this?
It's great progress. I mean, those numbers are roughly what I've heard myself. I mean, everything's of the major violent crimes is down every year for the past several years. We had that uptick in the homicides last year, but even that's now looks like it's down about 26% or so. I think you probably got to round up your 25, 26. But I'll say this, we are not, we meaning the police chief and I, we talk all the time. We're not in the business of doing, touchdown dances and taking victory laps as long as there's anybody who's a victim of violent crime, but that's undeniable progress. I mean, we're talking about almost 30% year-to-date reductions in the most serious forms of violent crime. We're happy about that. It's proof that we're on the right path and we're doing the right things. It's not, and it's also consistent. I mean, Jack, this isn't the first time we've sat down and talked about crime, and it's been the same conversation now for a few years in a row. It's just, everything just continues to decline. But what people have to understand, that I'm doing a little bit of an arithmetic lesson with folks sometimes, it gets harder and harder to have declines because we're not comparing ourselves to some national baseline number. We're comparing ourselves to ourselves. So it gets harder and harder to generate these double-digit reductions in crime categories when you just reduced it the previous quarter, in the previous year. We're outdoing ourselves year over year. So this is really, really impressive stuff that I think is starting to get some attention. But this has been consistent, and this is the result of a violent crime reduction plan that takes into account some of the realities of criminology. And we've brought in experts who've looked at this, and they've said not only is the plan working, but we can attribute the results to the plan, which is an important thing to be able to say. So Chief Garcia deserves a lot of credit for going to the academic world and getting their opinion, and then having the resolve to stick with it. It's paying off.
Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson, thank you so much.
Thanks,
we appreciate
Jack.
your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.